So out of the Western teams, the first team we're going to be covering is actually pretty far into the western half of the country, and that's Denver, the Denver Nuggets.
Denver
Last
Nuggets.
year, last year the Nuggets were 48 and 34. This year, Vegas has their projected wins as 49 and a half. So a slight improvement, even with Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. hopefully playing the whole year this year.
I'm not a betting man, but I gotta say that's maybe the one of the easiest like take the over bets in the NBA. Like 1.5 game improvement with like how I mean, obviously any team can they could fall apart again due to injury, but like that seems like that seems like an easy win. This is like it seems like a clear 50+ win team to me.
You are reliant on Jamal Murray's health, I think, quite a bit for that to happen. But if Jamal Murray stays healthy and Michael Porter Jr. stays healthy and continues the level of play we saw from him 2 years ago when he had his first full, relatively healthy season, I think, yeah, that would be an easy lock for at least a 50-win team.
I think even beyond their stars coming back, that's like Jamal Murray's an offensive star. Michael Porter Jr. is like a star waiting to happen who got sidetracked by injury last year. Like even without those, like their big scoring pieces come back, I like this. Like let's say those guys both get injured again, and we have this Jokic carry job. Part two, I like their team a little bit better. Like I think KCP and Bruce Brown are like perfect pickups for that team. I think everyone in Denver was like a little bit sick of Will Barton, and we'd seen the full capacity of what Monte Morris, Facundo Campazzo, and Austin Rivers were gonna bring to this team. So like I like some of their moves around the margins as well.
They did lose a little bit of depth because, like as you said, they lost those four pieces. They also lost JaMychal Green, who had a rough season this last year, but had been a solid rotation piece for them. But they are like really relying on health because, like you said, they lost a decent amount of their rotation last year, and they only added KCP and Bruce Brown. I mean, Ish Smith might play a little bit as a backup point guard. If Bones Highland isn't ready to take on a full complement of like 20 to 25 minutes a night, but they're definitely thin.
Bones Highland's kind of their big upside piece outside of Michael Porter Jr. Obviously, like he's got a scoring guards I find are a little bit unpredictable. I think we'll get to guys like Anthony Simons when we get to your Blazers, but like Bones Highland could absolutely like. But if you told me like Bones Highland averages 17, 18 points per game this year and is in the mix for sixth man of the year, I wouldn't be surprised at all. But he could also just like average 10 points per game on sub 40% shooting, or just like not really be that special. I'm a big Bones Highland guy. I'm expecting big things from him this year, but I do think that those scoring guards development, those small scoring guards who are built around sort of like specifically their on-ball scoring and shooting, like they can be a bit temperamental.
Yeah. I mean, that is true. The one upside I would say with Bones Highland is he is a second-year player, and players tend to improve the most between their rookie year and their second year. And last year he wasn't terrible. He improved quite a bit as the season went on, but like he ended the season averaging 10 and 3 a game. He shot over 40% from the field, so he was efficient enough. And he got a little bit of playoff experience too.
Michael Porter Jr., though, I think is Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray. Like we kind of skirted past them right away, but like those are two ridiculous potential scorers coming back if they can finally get a healthy season under their belt after being on the shelf for a while. It's a full like season and a half for Murray and
Michael Porter Jr. played an entirety of 9 games last year, so he essentially missed all of last year as well.
And has like yet to, so sometimes listing games played like, from the year 2020 and 2021, like they sound like he only played 61 games in 2021, but that was a 72 game season. Like, but he missed his whole rookie season with a similar injury. Like, so obviously he's like, a lot of people I think have given up on him, but like he, outside of like peak Klay Thompson, and actually, including peak Klay Thompson, I don't think I've seen anyone with such a like consistent looking stroke. in the end. And on top of that consistent stroke, he gets insane elevation. Like just like when he pulls up for that, like he's not, that shot's not getting contested. It's kind of his whole game is built around that, just being like an explosive finisher and shooter, and he's a pure play finisher. I don't like see him doing a ton of stuff off the dribble, but like he's a crazy athlete, specifically in terms of having elevation on his jumper and elevation like finishing at the rim. So I mean, like putting that next to Jokic, like a kind of Frankenstein perfect play finisher next to the best play initiator in the NBA right now. Kind of like Jokic just put together a couple seasons where he's looking like one of the best play initiators since like Steve Nash, Magic Johnson. So like it's if he can just stay healthy, even if he doesn't improve, even if he just like does 2021 over again, like that's a pretty absurd piece in that context. Not saying Michael Porter Jr. is like, you know, the best player in the NBA, but I just think on that Denver team next to Jokic, his value kind of like is exponential.
I mean, yeah, if the Nuggets can get anything like 45% from three from him again, you know, replicate just what he did in a couple of years ago during his really one and only, you know, mostly healthy season, that would be awesome, because all you really need around Jokic is just people who can finish the shots that he's creating for them. You know, and as we saw, like, yes, the Nuggets lost in, was it 5 or 6 games to the Warriors in the playoffs last year? And it doesn't seem from the outside like a very competitive series, but you know, there wasn't a whole lot of talent on the Nuggets side, and the Nuggets were still in a lot of those games. And, you know, really all you need to do with an offensive focal point like Jokic is just give him a couple of pieces that can take advantage of that and take some of the pressure off of him. And I think having a truly elite catch and shoot player, you know, like you're not overstating it by comparing him to Klay Thompson. He does have an uncontestable jump shot, and he shoots well over 40%. And that's elite, you know, in this league. Even in today's era, there's not a lot of guys who can do that.
Where do you have Denver finishing this year? What is your Denver optimism or pessimism like?
Well, that can kind of like lead into my like big question I had about Denver, which is honestly just health. You know, I think if the Nuggets are fully healthy, I would have them. I mean, regular season, it's always hard to gauge. Like the veteran teams that don't rest their players are always going to win a lot of games. And the Nuggets are, although they're still young-ish, I would say they're approaching that stage. You know, like Jokic is in his late 20s. Murray and Porter are in their mid-20s. They're surrounded by a bunch of veteran role players, like Bruce Brown and KCP. But you know, I could definitely see them finishing top 3 in the West, as long as, you know, fingers crossed, everyone manages to avoid the injury bug this year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, once a team has been injured, and you know there's those injury concerns, you worry more about that. But I'm going into the season like just assuming, like every other team, that they're going to have good health, and especially sometimes when teams, they just need to get lucky at some point, and I'm hoping that will happen for the Nuggets this year. Yeah, my big question about them is Jokic winning his 3rd straight MVP this year?
That's kind of an interesting one, because I think there's been a lot of speculation about like, oh, he can't win his 3rd straight MVP because voter fatigue, you know, and it's kind of easy to assume, like, makes sense, right? We've had guys who were probably deserving of an MVP reward before in the past who didn't win one, right? Because the voters wanted the new thing. But I wonder if we kind of get to a point where the voter fatigue itself becomes such a thing that people are aware of that they'll consciously try to avoid it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I could see a world in which if the Nuggets do finish, you know, let's say top 2 or top 1 in the conference, and Jokic just has stats and efficiency that blow everyone else away, like, yeah, in a world like that, I definitely would have Jokic as the favorite to win MVP. Like, is that going to happen? I don't know. Jokic isn't going to win MVP in my mind if the Nuggets finish 5th or 6th. You know, they would need the elite regular season record to go along with the elite stats.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think in some ways the way he gets around the voter fatigue is just that, like, we have this player right now who's like just statistically has put himself head and shoulders above every other player. We've got like Giannis and Embiid last year put up historically massive statistical outputs and just
Mhm.
could barely touch Jokic in terms of like, like any way that people are breaking down statistics, like Jokic is just like, oh my God, he's this huge outlier. So if he just does that again and they go from a 48 win team to a 58 win team, which I think is like, I mean, it's a competitive league this year, but like it's not out of the question. It sort of becomes like, how do we not pick this guy again? Even though there'll be some people who will be obviously the biggest factor is like who else pops off and what's Doncic saying is it does Embiid stay healthy all year, things like that. But like I think there's a very clear path to Jokic winning his third straight, as absurd as that sounds, because that's like that's Michael Jordan level stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we should clarify it's unlikely to happen, right? The odds are not in favor of him winning MVP. Several things need to happen. Like the record needs to fall into place. He needs to play 82 games or close to it. He needs to, probably improve a little bit from last year, as ridiculous as he was last year. Like he's capable of doing all those things. The Nuggets are capable of being an elite team next year. And I mean, there just needs to be, I'm not a 100% believer that the MVP is completely decided by narrative, but there needs to be like some sort of narrative element in his favor, which could be like, hey, the Nuggets broke through and they won 63 games this year and are 8 games ahead of the second place team. Like that could be the push that he needs.
Or just that if the Nuggets have a 6 to 8 game improvement or something like that, and Jokic just puts up the same stats and there's not another player that matches that statistical output, I think it's actually his case is going to be really rock solid, and there's going to have to like be something coming from elsewhere. So I think like it's never likely for any one player to win MVP just because there's a lot of players in the NBA, but like he's kind of he's my preseason pick for MVP.
Okay, that's solid. Yeah, I mean he's going to have disgusting efficiency and stats once again, as he always does, and he never seems to get hurt. So those are the
fingers crossed, knock on wood.
Those are the base ingredients you need, and he's got those going for him. So let's transition.